During the wedding toast, my daughter-in-law said, "To the mother-in-law trying to steal our money, they say humiliation burns deeper than any wound." Mine came wrapped in crystal and champagne, delivered by a woman who thought she knew my worth. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and comment where you're watching from. 200 crystal glasses clinked beneath chandeliers while I adjusted my fake pearl necklace. The blue markdown dress I'd sacrificed to afford hung awkwardly on my 71-year-old frame. From my corner table, I watched my son Jason beam beside Vanessa in her $50,000 gown. 6 months of my financial sacrifice stood before me, radiant in designer silk. I took a small sip of champagne, wincing at its dryness. My arthritic fingers trembled slightly as I set the glass down. The Blackwell Hotel ballroom sparkled with wealth and privilege, a world I'd visited briefly as a teacher chaperoning field trips, never as a guest. "One final toast," Vanessa announced, her voice silencing the crowd. She stood, impossibly elegant, her diamond earrings catching the light. "To new beginnings and appropriate endings." Her eyes found mine across the crowded room. "To the Thompson family, especially my dear mother-in-law, Eleanor," something in her tone made my stomach tighten, "who so generously contributed to this wedding and then, magically, appeared with urgent medical bills when her resources were depleted." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Jason's face went pale beside her, but he remained silent. "So here's to mothers-in-law who see weddings as investment opportunities." Vanessa tilted her glass slightly. "And who apparently think the Blackwell fortune is a retirement fund for teachers with poor financial planning." The silence was deafening. 200 pairs of eyes turned toward me, some pitying, others shocked, many gleaming with malicious curiosity. I placed my barely touched champagne flute on the table with a soft clink. My hands shook, but not from arthritis. With silent dignity, I rose slowly, my knees protesting as I straightened my back. The walk to the exit felt endless, each step echoing on the marble floor. Only in the taxi did I allow a single tear to escape. "Home, please," I instructed the driver. Returning to the modest house I'd lived in for decades, the one I would soon have to sell. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at Frank's photograph, the weight of my humiliation pressing down on my chest. 5 years a widow, and still I looked to him for strength. "They think they know me," I whispered to his smiling face, my voice breaking. "But they have no idea who I really am." I didn't know it then, but that public humiliation would become my salvation. Sometimes, you need to lose everything to discover what was hidden all along. My heart medication sat beside Frank's photo, a reminder of my mortality and the price I'd paid for my son's happiness. I swallowed the bitter pill dry, a new resolution forming behind my tired eyes. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow I would remember who Eleanor Thompson really was, before she became simply Jason's mother or Frank's widow. Tomorrow, I would begin to reclaim my dignity, one painful step at a time. 8 months earlier, I was stirring sugar into my tea when Jason called to announce his engagement. My modest pension check lay on the kitchen table, $2,800 a month after 35 years of teaching literature to ungrateful teenagers. Enough to maintain this small 2-bedroom house in Boston's outskirts, with its fading wallpaper and creaking floors. "Mom, she's incredible," Jason gushed through the phone. "Vanessa Blackwell." "Yes, those Blackwells. The real estate developers." I felt a flutter of concern. At 42, Jason had built a respectable career in marketing, but nothing that matched the Blackwell empire. I'd raised him to believe character mattered more than wealth, but I'd also watched him struggle with that principle his entire adult life. "I'm happy for you," I said, meaning it. "When do I get to meet her?" 3 weeks later, Vanessa glided into my home like royalty, visiting a quaint village. 32, with effortlessly perfect hair and clothes that probably cost more than my monthly pension, she surveyed my living room with polite disinterest. "What a charming home," she said, in a tone that suggested it was anything but. "Jason tells me you were a teacher?" "Literature, 35 years. How fulfilling," she replied, her eyes already wandering elsewhere. Later, after she'd left, Jason lingered in my kitchen, uncharacteristically nervous. "Mom," he began, fidgeting with his coffee mug, "the Blackwells have expectations about the wedding." I waited, sensing what was coming. "They expect me to contribute half the costs. It's tradition in their family." He swallowed hard. We're talking about $90,000. My half would be 45. My heart sank. And Vanessa doesn't know you can't afford it. If she finds out, her father will see me as nothing but a fortune hunter. His voice cracked slightly. He already watches me like I'm a con artist who somehow tricked his daughter. I looked at my son, my only child, my heart, and saw the desperate fear behind his eyes. Frank and I had raised him to be honest, but I recognized the trap he was in. The Blackwell's world operated on different rules. How much do you need? I asked finally. $45,000, he whispered, unable to meet my eyes. I nodded slowly, already calculating what I would have to sell, what sacrifices would be required. I'll help you, Jason. That night, I sat alone with Frank's photograph. What would you do? I asked the empty room. 5 years after cancer took him, I still sought his counsel. The house felt especially silent as I contemplated selling it. The home where we'd raised our son, where Frank had died in our bedroom upstairs. My retirement account held $62,000, nearly everything I had. Using it would mean no safety net for medical emergencies, no cushion for the unpredictable costs of aging. But looking at Jason's desperate face, I'd made my choice. A mother protects her child, even from himself, even when he's 42 years old and should know better. I began the quiet liquidation of my life on a Tuesday morning. The antique dealer arrived at 10, examining Frank's beloved first editions with professional detachment. $6,500, he offered, not looking up from his inventory list. The Hemingway collection adds significant value. I nodded, watching as he packed away books Frank had spent decades collecting, treasures he'd planned to pass down to Jason one day. The check felt insubstantial compared to the memories being boxed away. Next came Frank's Patek Philippe watch, a family heirloom his father had given him. $9,000 from a collector who barely glanced at me when he handed over the cash. The family jewelry followed, $7,500 at auction. Each sale was a small death, another piece of our shared history dismantled. When I handed Jason the first check for $25,000, his relief was palpable. "It's a loan, Mom," he insisted, gripping my hand. "I'll pay you back as soon as I reorganize my finances." What he didn't know, I'd canceled my supplemental health insurance, keeping only basic Medicare. I'd also indefinitely postponed the knee surgery my orthopedist had recommended months ago. The constant pain was my secret to bear. I met Vanessa only 3 times during the wedding preparations, tense encounters where she exhibited practiced politeness and genuine disinterest in her future mother-in-law. During tea at the Blackwell mansion, when I mentioned my teaching career, she smiled with perfect teeth. "Public education must be challenging," she commented, stirring her tea. "I imagine retirement is even more difficult, considering the salaries." The comment, delivered with a polite smile, revealed what she really thought about my financial situation. That night, I discovered the letter, tucked inside one of Frank's books the dealer had overlooked. A worn copy of Great Expectations was an envelope addressed to me in my husband's handwriting. "For Eleanor, when the time is right." Inside was a single typewritten page. "My dearest Elle, if you're reading this, you're likely facing difficulties I can no longer help you navigate. 15 years ago, I made an investment I never told you about. $75,000 in a startup founded by Michael Chen, that brilliant student we hosted for dinner who wanted to revolutionize property management through technology. I kept it separate, not wanting to worry you with such a risky venture. But Michael's company, Next Tech Solutions, is growing rapidly. This investment may someday be worth much more than what I've documented in our official will. Contact Thomas Whitaker at the address below 5 years after I'm gone. He has all the details. Remember what you always told your students. Dignity isn't what others grant you. It's what you refuse to surrender. All my love, Frank." I stared at the letter, my hands trembling. What was Frank trying to tell me? And why wait 5 years? 6 weeks before the wedding, I finalized the sale of my house, our home for 40 years. After paying off the remaining mortgage, I cleared $150,000. I transferred the final $20,000 to Jason, completing my contribution to his wedding, and began searching for an apartment to rent. On a sweltering June morning, while carrying boxes for the move, a crushing pain seized my chest. The edges of my vision darkened, and I barely reached the phone before collapsing. I woke to the sterile white ceiling of a hospital room and the rhythmic beeping of monitors. "Dr. Reynolds, A woman half my age with kind eyes stood at the foot of my bed. "Mrs. Thompson, you've had a heart attack, not massive, but significant. We performed an angioplasty to open the blocked artery." When she handed me the preliminary bill, $12,000 not covered by basic Medicare, panic flooded through me. The supplemental insurance I'd canceled would have covered most of it. "Your recovery requires ongoing medication, costing approximately $400 monthly, plus regular consultations," Dr. Reynolds continued. "Without proper treatment, the risk of a second, potentially fatal heart attack is significant." From my hospital bed, I called Jason. "Mom, what's wrong?" His voice carried genuine concern. "I've had a heart attack," I said simply. "I need help with medical expenses." His sharp intake of breath was followed by hesitation when I mentioned the amount. "I'm completely committed to the final wedding payments. I need to talk to Vanessa." The next day, Jason visited, visibly tense. "Vanessa asked why you didn't use your supplemental insurance," he said, not meeting my eyes. "I had to explain that you canceled it to help with the wedding." The disappointment in his voice cut deeper than the surgical incision in my arm. "She agreed to pay the bill," he continued, "but she's quite concerned about the situation." "Concerned about my health?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "About the financial implications, Mom. She thinks you're expecting the Blackwells to cover your medical expenses now. I asked you for help." "Jason, not the Blackwells." He flinched. "We're getting married in 6 weeks. Our finances will be joined." I turned away, staring out the window at the Boston skyline. The medication made me dizzy, or perhaps it was the realization that my son saw me as a liability rather than his mother. That afternoon, a flower arrangement arrived. Roses and lilies in an ornate vase. The card read, "Get well soon. P.S. I've attached the card of an excellent financial planner who works with the Blackwell family. For future considerations, Vanessa." The condescension was unmistakable, even in the forced kindness. I placed the card on my bedside table, next to the heart monitor, tracking my damaged heart. Something shifted inside me. A quiet calcification of resolve where uncertainty had been. 5 years, I whispered, remembering Frank's letter. It had been almost exactly 5 years since his death. As soon as I was discharged, I would contact Thomas Whitaker. 3 weeks after the humiliating wedding toast, I sat in Thomas Whitaker's office, a sealed folder in my trembling hands. The heart medication made my fingers feel stiff and uncooperative as I broke the seal. "Your husband left specific instructions," the silver-haired attorney explained. "These documents were to be delivered 5 years after his passing, or immediately if you faced significant financial hardship. We recently learned of your hospitalization and subsequent challenges." Inside the folder, I found documents detailing an investment Frank had made 15 years earlier. $75,000 in a tech startup founded by a gifted former student. The company, Next Tech Solutions, had grown exponentially. Frank's 2% stake, now mine, was worth approximately $3.6 million. $3.6 million? I repeated, my voice barely audible. Whitaker nodded. "And growing. Nextech is revolutionizing property management with their AI platform. They're taking market share from traditional firms, including Blackwell Properties." A handwritten letter from Frank accompanied the documents. "Eleanor, my love, I kept this investment separate for a reason. Initially, it was extremely risky, and I didn't want to worry you. As it grew, it became my surprise for our golden years. If you're reading this ahead of schedule, you're likely facing difficulties. Use this wisely. Not just for comfort, but to preserve your dignity, which has always been your most precious asset." Tears blurred my vision as I read his words. Even from beyond the grave, Frank was protecting me. "What do I do now?" I asked Whitaker. "First, we verify your ownership and arrange access to dividends without selling shares. The real value is in holding the investment. Nextech is on an upward trajectory." He slid another document across the desk. "This is the contact information for Sarah Chen, an exceptional corporate attorney I recommend. She can help you understand your options and rights as a significant shareholder." That evening, in my rented apartment, I lined up my heart medications, a daily ritual of survival. Each pill represented a sacrifice I'd made, a piece of dignity I'd surrendered. "Not anymore," I whispered to Frank's photograph. "I spent the night researching Next Tech Solutions, discovering that their revolutionary AI platform was reshaping how properties were evaluated and managed. Their client list included major developers nationwide, except Blackwell Properties, who still relied on traditional methods. The irony wasn't lost on me. The family that had humiliated me for my financial situation was now potentially threatened by an asset I owned. I called Sarah Chen the next morning and scheduled a consultation. "I need to understand my options," I told her, "and I need absolute discretion." As I hung up, a text message arrived from Jason. "Mom, Vanessa and I would like to discuss setting boundaries regarding financial assistance going forward. Dinner at our place next week?" I stared at the message, a strange calm settling over me. For the first time since Frank's death, I felt the stirring of something beyond grief and sacrifice, something that felt surprisingly like power. "Boundaries," I repeated to the empty room, a small smile forming. "Yes, I think it's time we discussed those. The simplest option is a securities-backed loan," Sarah Chen explained a month after the wedding. We sat in her downtown office, 30 floors above Boston, the city sprawling below us. "You can access liquidity without selling shares, using a portion of your Nextech stock as collateral." I nodded, absorbing the information. At 71, I was learning financial terminology I'd never needed before. "How much could I access?" I asked. "Conservatively, $200,000 against just 5% of your holdings. The paperwork takes about 30 days. And my rights as a shareholder?" Sarah smiled. "You receive quarterly reports with detailed information about Nextech's direction. Information that would be extremely valuable to competitors like the Blackwells." The realization settled over me. "I don't want to destroy anyone," I said finally. "I just want my dignity back." "Sometimes," Sarah replied, "the best revenge is simply revealing the truth at the right moment." I spent the next weeks meticulously planning my transformation. First, I secured my health, a premium insurance plan and specialists to optimize my cardiac treatment. Each morning, as I took my medications, the visible reminder of what my sacrifice had cost me, I renewed my resolution. Never again would my generosity be mistaken for weakness. I moved to a comfortable condominium in a respectable Boston neighborhood, not ostentatiously luxurious, but significantly better than my previous apartment. I hired Rebecca Torres, a brilliant former student who now worked as a financial analyst, as my part-time assistant. "I need to fully understand the real estate sector and how technology is transforming it," I explained during her interview. Rebecca, delighted at the opportunity to work with her former teacher, accepted immediately. 4 months after the wedding, I invited Jason and Vanessa to dinner at my new home. Each day while planning the event, I took my heart medications, a ritual that now symbolized not just survival, but rebirth. They arrived precisely at 7, Vanessa clearly expecting to find me in modest circumstances, possibly preparing to request more financial assistance. Instead, they encountered a transformed Eleanor, confident, elegant, and visibly healthy. The condominium was decorated with understated sophistication, the dinner prepared by a quality catering service. Rebecca was present, managing details, and occasionally joining the conversation with informed comments about financial markets. During the meal, I casually mentioned my new interest in following technological trends. Vanessa, initially suspicious, became visibly tense when I commented, "It's fascinating how startups are revolutionizing traditional sectors like real estate. I recently read about a company called Nextech Solutions. Are you familiar with it?" "Vanessa? Apparently they're transforming how properties are evaluated and managed." Jason appeared confused by my transformation and new interest, while Vanessa cast calculating glances around the apartment. "I didn't know you had an interest in investments, Eleanor," she remarked, struggling to maintain composure. I smiled serenely while sipping my tea. "Frank always said continuous learning keeps the mind young. I'm merely exploring new horizons." I discreetly took my heart medication, a visible reminder of my previous fragility and current strength. After dinner, as the couple was leaving, I overheard Vanessa urgently whisper to Jason in the hallway, "Something's happening. Where did the money for all this come from? Find out. I've decided to meet with the Blackwells," I told Sarah Chen 2 weeks after the dinner. We sat in my condominium, reviewing the Nextech quarterly reports that had arrived that morning. Sarah looked up sharply. "Are you sure that's wise? Once they know the extent of your holdings, they already suspect something," I interrupted, taking my midday heart medication. Caroline Blackwell, Vanessa's sister and VP of Strategy at Blackwell Properties, has requested a private lunch to better know Jason's family. Sarah frowned. They've done their research. Be careful what you reveal. At the elegant restaurant chosen by Caroline, I maintained my composure while the 38-year-old executive studied me calculatingly. After brief pleasantries, she went straight to the point. Mrs. Thompson, I admire people who reinvent their lives, she began with a practiced smile. I've noticed some interesting changes in your situation recently. I thanked her politely, taking my medication with water. Caroline continued. Our company maintains a competitive analysis team that monitors market trends. Recently, your name appeared in Nextech Solutions corporate reports. She paused, studying my reaction. An interesting coincidence, considering our new family ties. I calmly confirmed owning shares in the company, an investment made by my late husband many years ago. Caroline tried to probe how much I knew about Nextech's new AI platform. I've been following developments with interest, I replied vaguely, following Sarah's advice to never discuss specific details that could be considered privileged information. Caroline then presented the true reason for the meeting. Blackwell Properties would like to begin discussions about possibly acquiring my shares or forming a strategic partnership. Naturally, we'd offer a generous premium above market value, say 25%. I politely declined. These shares are Frank's legacy. They represent his work and vision. They're not for sale, at least not in the foreseeable future. Caroline maintained her smile, but her eyes hardened. Mrs. Thompson, perhaps you don't understand the complexities of the corporate world. Small shareholders often benefit from the protection of larger companies. It would be unfortunate if business affected already delicate family relations. I took the final pill of my daily regimen, a beta blocker for my heart. I understand perfectly, Caroline. I also understand the difference between a business offer and a veiled threat. I placed my napkin on the table. Please convey my regards to your parents and remind Vanessa our next family lunch is on Sunday. That evening, I called Rebecca. I need you to compile a complete timeline of my financial sacrifices for Jason's wedding, including bank statements and sale receipts. May I ask why? Rebecca inquired. Because it's time for the truth, I replied, looking at Frank's photograph. All of it. The next morning, I received a text from Jason. We need to talk. Coming over this afternoon. I prepared myself for the confrontation, arranging the Nextech documents on my coffee table alongside the timeline Rebecca had prepared. Each medication I took that morning felt like armor I was putting on, protection for the battle ahead. This would be the day I reclaimed not just my financial security, but my voice. Jason arrived at my door looking agitated, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled. What game are you playing? Mom, the Blackwells are furious. Vanessa barely speaks to me since her sister reported your meeting. I took my morning medication and invited him in. Rebecca was present, organizing documents on the living room table. Rebecca isn't just my assistant, but my witness and advisor, I explained. Jason, I began calmly, when was the last time you saw me truly angry? Confused, he answered, You almost never get angry. Exactly, I said, but I'm profoundly hurt now. I revealed everything. How I sold my house and most precious possessions to help him. How I canceled my health insurance. How I nearly died from a heart attack. How Vanessa treated me even before the wedding. How he failed to defend me. And finally, the public humiliation at the wedding toast. Jason grew progressively pale, especially when Rebecca presented a documented timeline of all my financial sacrifices, including bank statements and sales receipts. And then, I continued, when I was literally heartbroken, both emotionally and physically, I discovered your father had left me an extraordinary gift. I showed Jason the Nextech documents and Frank's letter. Dad's investment is worth millions now, Jason, millions that the Blackwells would like to control, since Nextech is rapidly outpacing their business model. Jason looked stunned. Why didn't you tell me about the money? I stared at my son, taking another medication, because I wanted to see who you really are when you think I'm vulnerable and needy. And I discovered that the man I raised to value integrity above all was willing to let me be humiliated to preserve his new social status. Mom, he began, his voice cracking. The saddest part, I interrupted, isn't the betrayal. It's that you became someone I don't recognize, someone who values appearance over substance, status over family. What happens now? he asked quietly. I sighed, suddenly feeling every one of my 71 years. That depends on you, Jason. I'm meeting with the entire Blackwell family next week to discuss Nextech and our interconnected futures. You're welcome to attend, but only if you remember whose son you are. He left devastated, finally understanding the extent of his failures. That night, I received an unexpected email from Gerald Blackwell himself, Vanessa's father and CEO of Blackwell Properties. Mrs. Thompson, I believe we should discuss matters directly, without intermediaries. Would you join us for dinner at our home on Thursday? Your legal counsel is welcome to attend. I forwarded the message to Sarah, who responded immediately. They're worried. This is good. Let's prepare. Over the next 3 days, Sarah and I crafted our strategy. We decided I would offer a small olive branch, access to quarterly Nextech reports in exchange for a formal apology, while maintaining complete ownership of my shares. Remember, Sarah advised, they're used to intimidating people. Your power lies in your calm dignity. On Thursday evening, I arrived at the Blackwell mansion with Sarah beside me. As we walked up the imposing driveway, I touched the pearl necklace at my throat, not the fake one from the wedding, but my grandmother's genuine pearls, retrieved from the safe deposit box where I'd stored my few remaining treasures. Ready? Sarah asked at the door. I nodded, feeling the steady rhythm of my medicated heart. I've been ready for 71 years. The Blackwell dining room could have housed my entire former apartment. Gerald Blackwell sat at the head of the mahogany table, his wife Margaret to his right, daughters Caroline and Vanessa to his left. Jason sat awkwardly beside an empty chair, clearly meant for me. Mrs. Thompson, thank you for joining us, Gerald began after introductions. At 65, he emanated the confidence of someone who had never known financial insecurity. I believe we have matters to discuss that affect both our families. I nodded, taking my evening medication with water. Yes, we do. I'll be direct, Gerald continued. Our research indicates you hold approximately 2% of Nextech Solutions, a significant stake. We at Blackwell Properties are interested in diversifying our technological portfolio. What my husband means, Margaret interjected with practiced charm, is that we'd like to explore ways our family enterprises might benefit each other. After all, we are family now. I smiled politely. Business and family are separate matters, Mrs. Blackwell. One shouldn't leverage the other. Caroline leaned forward. Mrs. Thompson, our initial offer of a 25% premium was perhaps too conservative. We're prepared to offer 40% above market value for your shares, approximately $5 million. The table fell silent as everyone awaited my response. I could feel Jason's eyes on me, pleading silently. That's a generous offer, I acknowledged. But as I told Caroline, these shares represent my late husband's legacy. They're not for sale. Gerald's expression hardened. Perhaps you don't fully understand. Nextech's technology directly threatens our traditional business model. As family, we expected you might consider our mutual interests. I understand perfectly, Mr. Blackwell, just as I understood when your daughter publicly humiliated me at her wedding. Just as I understood when she implied I was a financial burden with poor planning. I placed my pill container on the table. These medications remind me daily of what my generosity cost me. They also remind me that second chances are precious. I turned to Vanessa, who hadn't spoken. You misjudged me based on my age and occupation. You assumed a retired teacher couldn't possibly have value in your world of high finance and status. Vanessa flushed, but remained silent. I have a counterproposal, I continued. I'll retain my Nextech shares. However, I'm willing to share quarterly insights about their technological developments, information that might help Blackwell Properties adapt to changing market conditions. And what do you want in return? Gerald asked suspiciously. Respect, I said simply, starting with a public apology from Vanessa for her wedding toast. Not for my benefit, but so she acknowledges the cruelty of her actions. The room fell silent again. Then, surprisingly, Gerald laughed, a short, genuine bark of amusement. You know, Mrs. Thompson, in 40 years of business, I've rarely been outmaneuvered, but you've managed it with remarkable grace. He turned to his younger daughter. Vanessa? Vanessa stared at her plate, then raised her eyes to meet mine. I apologize for my behavior at the wedding. It was inexcusable. Apology accepted, I replied. Now, shall we discuss how Nextech's AI valuation system might benefit Blackwell Properties if implemented correctly? As the conversation shifted to business, I caught Jason watching me with an expression I hadn't seen since he was a boy, pure admiration. When dinner concluded, Gerald walked me to the door. "Mrs. Thompson, Eleanor, I underestimated you considerably, a mistake I won't repeat." "Most people do, Mr. Blackwell," I replied, taking my final medication of the day. That's been my advantage for 71 years. 6 weeks after the dinner with the Blackwells, I stood at a podium in Boston University's Alumni Hall, adjusting the microphone. Behind me sat the university president, several distinguished faculty, and Sarah Chen. The audience of 300 included educators, tech professionals, and, in the front row, Jason, Vanessa, and the entire Blackwell family. "Today," I began, "I'm honored to announce the creation of the Frank Thompson Educational Innovation Fund, with an initial endowment of $5 million. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Jason's eyes widened in surprise. "This fund will support 2 initiatives. First, a healthcare foundation for retired educators facing medical hardships, and second, educational technology research to bring cutting-edge tools to public school classrooms." I explained how Nextech Solutions would partner with the university to develop specialized educational applications of their AI technology. By combining technological innovation with educational expertise, we create something neither could achieve alone. The university president joined me at the podium to sign the partnership agreement. Cameras flashed as we shook hands, officially launching a collaboration that had been weeks in the planning. At the reception afterward, educators who had once been my colleagues approached with newfound respect. Tech executives who would have ignored me months ago now sought my insights. Through it all, I maintained the quiet dignity Frank had always admired. Gerald Blackwell approached, champagne flute in hand. "Impressive maneuver, Eleanor. You've transformed a personal fortune into public prestige while maintaining control of your assets." "I learned from the best," I replied, sipping water. "Frank always said true wealth isn't what you have, but what you can give while keeping your independence." Gerald nodded thoughtfully. "We've incorporated some of Nextech's valuation systems into our operations. Early results are promising." "I'm glad to hear it," I said. "Business needn't be adversarial when mutual benefit is possible." Across the room, I spotted Jason deep in conversation with Rebecca and several tech entrepreneurs. His corporate mask had slipped, revealing genuine enthusiasm I hadn't seen in years. Later, as guests began to depart, Jason approached. "Mom, what you've done is incredible. Dad would be so proud." "I think he knew all along what I was capable of," I replied. "Sometimes we need to be reminded of our own strength." "I've been thinking about making a change," Jason said hesitantly. "Leaving corporate marketing to start my own consultancy focused on educational technology, smaller scale, but more meaningful." I squeezed his hand. "Your father would like that." Vanessa joined us, more subdued than I'd ever seen her. "Eleanor, I wanted to tell you, I've been volunteering at the hospital where you were treated. Just a few hours weekly in the cardiac care unit." Her admission surprised me. "That's unexpected. When someone shows you who they are, you should pay attention," she said quietly. "You showed me there are different kinds of strength. I'm trying to learn." As my car arrived to take me home, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Not just pride or vindication, but peace. The heart that had nearly failed me now beat steadily, strengthened not just by medication, but by reclaimed purpose. That night, I looked at Frank's photograph. "We did it," I whispered. "We created something that matters." The small cafe near Boston Common had become my weekly meeting place with Jason. Fall had painted the surrounding trees in brilliant oranges and reds, and a crisp breeze carried the scent of wood smoke and possibility. "You're looking well, Mom," Jason said, as he took the seat across from me. 3 months had passed since the university announcement, and our relationship was slowly healing, one conversation at a time. "The new medication regimen is working," I replied, stirring my tea. "Dr. Reynolds says my heart function has improved significantly." Jason nodded, then hesitated. "I have news. I gave notice at the firm yesterday. I'm launching my consultancy next month." Pride swelled in my chest. "That's wonderful." "Jason, have you found office space?" "Actually, that's partly why I wanted to meet. I've been looking at small offices, but real estate in Boston is prohibitively expensive," I finished for him. "I might have a solution." I explained that I'd purchased a small building near the university, 2 storefronts with offices above. The educational foundation will occupy one side. The other is available if you're interested. Consider it an investment in both our futures." Jason's eyes glistened. "Mom, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll pay market rate rent and donate 5 hours weekly to the foundation's work," I replied with a smile. "I'm investing in you, not supporting you. There's a difference." "Understood," he said, reaching for my hand across the table. "I'm sorry it took me so long to see who you really are." "We often don't see our parents as complete people until we're forced to," I said. "It's part of growing up, even at 42. As we finished our tea, Jason seemed to gather courage for something difficult. "There's something else. Vanessa wants to speak with you. Alone. She asked if she could meet you here after I leave." I raised my eyebrows in surprise but nodded. "I'll wait for her." 20 minutes after Jason departed, Vanessa arrived, looking uncharacteristically nervous in casual clothes, jeans, and a simple sweater I'd never seen her wear before. "Thank you for agreeing to see me," she began, sitting where Jason had been. "I wanted to talk without family around." I waited, taking my afternoon medication. "I've been thinking about your journey, losing Frank, supporting Jason, being treated terribly by me, and then finding your own path." She twisted her wedding ring unconsciously. "My whole life, I've defined myself through my family's wealth and status. I never developed my own identity separate from being Gerald Blackwell's daughter." "And now?" I prompted. "Now I'm volunteering regularly at the cardiac unit. I'm applying to nursing programs for next fall." She looked up, meeting my eyes directly. "My parents are furious. They expected me to join the family business, not pursue a middle-class profession." I couldn't hide my surprise. "That's a significant change. Seeing you rebuild your life forced me to examine mine," she admitted. "I've spent 32 years as an ornament, not a person. I want more than that." "And Jason? How does he feel about this change?" "Supportive, but confused. He married a Blackwell heiress and got a nursing student instead." She smiled wryly. "We're figuring it out. It's not easy." I studied the young woman before me. Still beautiful, still privileged, but somehow more substantial than before. "Growth rarely is easy, Vanessa, but it's always worth it." As she was leaving, Vanessa hesitated. "There's one more thing. I found something I think belongs to you." She removed a small box from her purse and placed it on the table. "I'll see you at Sunday dinner." After she left, I opened the box to find Frank's Patek Philippe watch, the family heirloom I'd sold to help pay for the wedding. A note accompanied it. "I tracked this down at auction. Some debts can't be repaid with money." I fastened the watch around my wrist, feeling its familiar weight. Second chances came in unexpected forms. Sometimes even broken hearts and relationships could be repaired with the right kind of care. 1 year after the wedding toast that changed everything, I stood in the courtyard of the newly renovated Thompson Educational Center. What had once been a neglected commercial building now housed the foundation offices, Jason's thriving consultancy, and a technology lab where teachers learned to implement Nextech's educational software. The transformation wasn't just in the building. I caught my reflection in the glass doors, a woman of 72 with straight posture and clear eyes, dressed in a tailored blue suit that complemented the silver in my hair. The heart medication bottles in my purse were now just one aspect of my life, not its defining feature. Inside, staff members greeted me with respect as I made my way to the conference room where the quarterly board meeting would soon begin. Sarah Chen, now the Foundation's legal counsel, looked up from her papers as I entered. "The Nextech quarterly report arrived this morning," she said, handing me a folder. "Their educational division is showing remarkable growth." I nodded, scanning the figures. "Send the summary to Gerald as we agreed. The Blackwell-Thompson collaboration on senior housing is benefiting from these innovations." The partnership that had grown between our families remained primarily professional, though Sunday dinners had become a monthly tradition. Gerald and I had developed an unlikely respect for each other, two people who had built different kinds of legacies. After the meeting, I walked to the small courtyard garden where we'd installed a bench in Frank's memory. Jason was waiting there, looking more like his father than ever in his casual business attire. "The Pittsburgh School District approved the pilot program," he announced as I sat beside him. 5 schools will implement the reading intervention software next semester." "Your father would be so proud," I said. "He always believed education was the greatest investment." "I found something while cleaning out my home office," Jason said, pulling an envelope from his jacket. "Dad gave this to me a week before he died, made me promise not to show you until the time was right. With everything that happened, I forgot about it until now." Inside was a photograph I'd never seen. Frank and I on our wedding day, laughing as we fed each other cake. On the back, in Frank's handwriting, "Remember this moment, Jason? Your mother isn't just kind and generous. She's fierce when protecting what she loves. Never mistake her gentleness for weakness. She's the strongest person I've ever known." Tears blurred my vision as Jason put his arm around me. He was right. You know, I just didn't understand until I saw you rebuild everything from scratch. Not from scratch, I corrected him. From foundation. There's a difference. As we sat in comfortable silence, Vanessa appeared at the garden entrance, still in her nursing school scrubs. In the years since our confrontation, she had transformed as profoundly as I had. Her designer wardrobe replaced by practical clothes, her practiced smile by genuine expressions. "Am I interrupting?" she asked. "Never," I replied, patting the space beside me. "Family is never an interruption." As they began discussing their days, I touched Frank's watch on my wrist, feeling its steady rhythm, keeping time with my strengthened heart. The dignity he had valued so highly hadn't been something I needed to reclaim. It had been within me all along, waiting to be remembered. Some debts, I had learned, couldn't be calculated in dollars, and some fortunes had nothing to do with money. The greatest wealth was in knowing your own worth and having the courage to claim it, no matter how many years it took to discover. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.